Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Thank you very much for this morning. We're just waiting for our guests to arrive for this afternoon. The programme, obviously, you've seen is slightly changed from this morning, but it runs with, obviously, you've seen the Treasurer's report and the Chairman of Council's report this morning, but it will run then for the rest as advertised. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon our distinguished guest is the Chief of Air Staff in command of the Royal Air Force, Air Chief Marshal Sir Stephen Hillier, and he will be accompanied by Lady Elaine Hillier. He will be escorted to the platform by the President of the Association, Air Marshal Sir Dusty Miller. Conference, will you please now rise to receive your guest?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's lovely to see actually all the seats are filled again, which is pretty unusual. We normally have a fair amount of leakage after lunch. It is my immense pleasure to welcome the Chief of the Air Staff, Sir Stephen Hillier, with us. Sir, you're genuinely really welcome. We're going to hear from you later on this afternoon, but it's something which I know fills us all with excitement. It's something we all used to be part of, and so when we see the presentation from the presentation team and hear what the Chief says, I know it's going to instill a great sense of pride in you. But the interesting thing is, and you may or may not think of it this way, you are still part of that, but in a slightly different way. So, sir, we are looking forward to what is one of the high points of our conference. And also I have the opportunity to sincerely thank Lady Hillier, Elaine, for the work you do with our Welfare Committee. It is so important to the association for what we do today and for moving forward to know that we have your attention and we actually hear from you how the Royal Air Force today is feeling. That is so fundamentally important. It's something we didn't have for a very long time. We've got it now and we treasure it, so thank you very much indeed. Right, to finish off the business part of the conference, we've got a segment now which will last up until 3 o'clock, which is when the RAF presentation team are poised, ready to come on stage. In previous years, I've asked the Secretary-General to give us his view on what has been achieved in the past year and also looking ahead to what it is that we're doing. Remember the Chairman's report when he set down a number of really hard challenges. And those challenges are bracketed around strategy and priorities and plans. And actually, I'm going to be very interested to listen to Nick's presentation to see quite how it is that he and the team in Leicester, and of course you as well, because it involves us all, plan to tackle and achieve those really tough targets that have been set by the Council. So if you'd like to welcome to the stage, please, Sec-Gen Nick Bunting. Nick? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, Chief. Hopefully, I'll be able to respond to the challenges that the Chairman gave me earlier. I've been busy at lunch changing my slides. There's now lots of them. So hopefully we'll address many of those points and inform you. You may have seen one or two of the slides either in the boss's presentation or at your area conferences. I make no apology for that. I think it's worth repeating success and information. However, I did want to start off with by reminding everybody why we're here, why we've been set these challenges, and where we started and came from. And of course, within that vision that talks about your service not resulting in suffering, loneliness or poverty, that word loneliness, it's interesting how prescient our forefathers were in examining and identifying that loneliness would become a problem. And then I think the mission that we have, which is straight out of the Royal Charter, and I'd like you first of all to read it without the bits between the two commas, where we are promoting the welfare by charitable means of the RAF family. And then the bit in the commas is through the comradeship engendered by its members. That's you and everybody else that's out there. And I'd like you just to remember those two things as we go through, because I'll be challenging some of those thoughts and presumptions with some of the information and feedback we've had from the members over the last few months. The chairman touched on this element of what are we doing? And in fact, this is the position up to the end of April. So as you can see, the challenge that he set to make that curve keep going, we've done that, and we are growing the association again this year. And I hope to be able to say, area directors, no pressure on you, that by the end of this month, we will have achieved the same number of new members as we achieved in the whole of 2014. Because if you look again to the end of April, those are the recruitment figures that we've done, and we have now crashed through that 20,000 barrier. And if you look, in 2014, we recruited 3,774 new members. And to date, we're about 300 members off beating the 2014 total in the first 5 months of this year. That is a tremendous achievement, and I need to thank everybody in this room for their efforts in doing that. But we need to keep that level of pace on and that level of growth if we are going to achieve that 2020 target. So it's really important that we keep that momentum going, but also that we celebrate some of those milestones on the journey towards 100,000. And I think for us to be able to say in 5 months we've done the same membership as we did in 2014 is a great milestone to celebrate. And that means that now we've gone up to nearly 30% of the membership are less than 3 years old, with the issues that faces us. And just to give you a context, so you can see that year-on-year growth that we've seen through that membership activity that we need to keep doing. And that exponential growth in membership is really important. And although the boss put out that gentle challenge, if we all recruited 1 member, we'd achieve that figure. I put that out as a serious challenge to everybody in this room. By the end of July, can you all please have recruited me 1 more member? Because if you all recruit 1 more member, and all of your branch colleagues do, we'll soon achieve that. And it is that personal touch. What's the cause? Why are we here? What are you selling them? And that's what we've actually got to explain to those people who are not currently involved with us. Now, the boss also touched on that bit in the middle there about what the new member recruitment was, and he showed you the recruitment that we were doing for that, what might be called the lost generation, that 30 to 55-year-old that weren't recruited into the association when they joined the Air Force. We've done a lot of work to try and start to fill that gap because they are your successors. They are the people who will become the officers of the branches. They'll be the wings appeal organisers, they'll be the welfare organisers, and we've got to work with people in that generation who are going to come through. Now, you've also got to accept that all of those people that we've recruited are not going to become activists in the branch overnight. Neither did you. And they won't either. We need to nurture their interest, we need to nurture their commitment. And we also need to recognise that a lot of the young people, that's the long-term gain. And if you go back to the slide, what the boss showed you, that breakdown in terms of membership, if we'd have kept growing that membership over the last 20 years, that number wouldn't change. We'd still be at 49% there or thereabouts. So what we've got to do is keep growing that, because we can't replace the life members. When they've gone, they've gone. It's in the nature of the membership, and we need to keep moving that forward. But I think this is also a really interesting chart and important for our serving colleagues to know that they are in the majority in the Air Force. The majority of the Air Force are members of the association. So part of your sales pitch to your colleagues is you're in the minority. And we need to explain the cause to them, to explain that we are the gang to be in, we are the association to be in. There was stuff I think that Malcolm talked about this morning about being in the club, the one association. We are the association that people need to be in. And we encourage you as serving members to recruit 10 or 20 members, please, not just one. But I think one of the things that we as an organisation have been struggling with, and some of it was demonstrated this morning in this really fabulous debates that we had, is this is a cultural change. Being in a growth environment is very different to where we were. We were in a declining environment and we accepted that, and we've stopped it and we've decided to do something about it. And that's something that we need to keep remembering, that some people are not comfortable with change, and certainly not the pace of change that we're going through. But it is about this group of people here. It's about the next generation. And we've got to remember we're about today's and tomorrow's beneficiaries, today's and tomorrow's members, and how we draw them together. And all of those people who are active are the ones that we need to be recruiting into the association to support us to do the welfare and the fundraising activities. And when we did a little survey of the membership, and we've had about 3,000 replies, so about 5% return, which means this is really statistically valid. What were the reasons for joining? And that was to remain part of the RAF family, to support the work of the association were the principal reasons. Those are the messages we want to be giving out as what's the cause, why are we here, what are we trying to do? And the rest of it really reflects the member benefits that you get from the first two. So the more that we can deliver the first two, the more people we should be encouraging to come along and join us. So in terms of delivering that challenge, if you can remember what the cause is, why we're here, it's about being part of the family, it's about the welfare outputs. Go back, if you remember, to the mission statement, the charitable means to deliver the welfare for the RAF family. That's what we've got to keep remembering and going back to. And some of the things that they said to us are really quite nice. And we would like to thank them, everybody that sent those to us. And we had lots of good comments. But I'll touch a little bit more about some of the other comments that we had. And I think one of the best things I've ever joined is a great comment on the association. Here's just a few more, just to show that it wasn't a tiny sample and we could go on. Remember, we had, as I say, over 3,000 returns so far. But we've had to spend some time and effort on thinking about what it is we need to say to people and what is the materials that we need to give them. And I would like to reassure you that marketing does work when we focus it and we think about it and we target it and we work on people. And here's some examples of that collateral that we've produced. Here's a bit more, because there are a few heroes in the room and we need to support you. And that's a billboard that was up, and we've tried all sorts of different sorts of marketing to see how we can find the best ways. But I'd just like to introduce you to Ted, lovely bloke Ted. He's in Wexford House, and he's one of the residents there. And we used him on a Facebook campaign. So how many of you have got Facebook? How many of you have seen Ted? So that's about half of you have got Facebook. So less of you. See the spikes on the right-hand side of the slide? Those two little peaks there, that was Ted. Now, Ted was appealing to the younger generation. It wasn't the older generation that generally used Facebook, as we've just seen, but the younger generation. That two spikes there represent 1,000 new members. So I would ask you to use your Facebook accounts to promote the association and its membership, because we now have to start to talk to those prospective members in new ways and in different ways, and not just the old ways that we've always done. We have to do things different. And Ted brought us in, over that period of time, 1,000 new members. Absolutely fantastic. We've also provided a wider range of benefits in RAFA rewards, and hopefully you've seen the details of this as you've renewed your membership this year. And this was also responding to the "what's in it for me" question that was also supporting the cause question. So we have extended and developed the "what's in it for me" response on the membership, and this is a range of benefits, discounts and other services that you can get through your membership of the association. So we've tried to respond both to the cause, both to the generational differences and the "what's in it for me" questions. So we're providing a plural answer, not just you should sign up because you're at Holton, because that's not how we'll recruit and encourage other people to join, and certainly not retain them. But membership's okay, but we need to think about the branches. And this is an area of concern for me personally because of what we're seeing across the country in terms of the shifting sands of branches. Because we said goodbye last year to quite a few branches. And every one of those is a disappointment to me, and particularly where you look at some of those branches are you telling me there's no members of the Air Force family in those areas? So why did they fail? And we need to think about what are the solutions there. And the solutions are about awareness, but it's also not about at the AGM going, I'm going to step down at chairman, who wants to be the chairman? Because it's too late then. Your committee will fail. We've got to think about how we start to think about preparing for that transition and bringing people on and encouraging them and doing different things. Equally, I'm very sad when I go to a branch and the branch chairman tells me when I die, the branch will die. And we need to be thinking about what we're doing there and how we're bringing them along. Because this was a really blunt statistic that came out of the research. 8 out of 10 members don't involve themselves with their branch. Now, why is that? Maybe that's a rhetorical question. So we asked them. And what's really sad, and the boss touched on it earlier about the Keep in Touch campaign. Every time we run a mini campaign about something, whether it's lapsing, it's data protection, it's anything we do, what we find is we get a load of responses, about half of which generate welfare cases. And we need to think about what does that mean in the branch terms. So if it's too far and I've got mobility problems and I'm a bit injured, how do I get to the branch? Well, the branch can provide a taxi through its welfare funds. It could suggest that one of its members goes and picks them up. Not what we're finding, that the branch is abandoning them. We have to do something about that. We have to think more plurally about how we keep our arms around that group of people who are struggling to come to the branches, because they're the people most in need of our welfare support, most in need of the befriending, most likely to suffer from isolation and loneliness. Remember what the vision said at the start. That's the key reasons. And, well, is it the only reason why people are not going to the branch? These are the not as really sad as they could be statements. There are some really sad things that have been written about why they're not going to the branches. And to say you're not welcomed is a really strange thing within our family, isn't it? We're supposed to welcome people into our family, and yet when people go to the branches, they're not being welcomed. And we have many examples of where branches have turned away people, whether they be a serving member or a volunteer or a veteran. And we need to really think about what's our attitude and approach to members of our community that want to come along. Here are some more. And I could give you pages after pages after pages of these. And these are not difficult things to fix, are they? And what we need to think about is the people in this room, the quarter of the branches that we have in the association in this room are the active ones. What are we going to do about the 2/3, the 3/4 that are not here? because they're the ones most likely to fail. They're the ones most likely to close. And I would almost guarantee you these are the branches that these comments are about. Because that is something that we have to accept. If the perception of us is, as John talked about earlier, that we are only a drinking club, we are only for veterans, and we are unwelcoming, that'll be how people see us. So despite all of our best efforts to change people's perception, to change the awareness of the association, one Daily Mail moment will set us back years. And we need to keep working on this, and we need to keep working on the governance of branches. And there are a lot of branches that are doing some really dumb things that we're starting to help them with to try and get through to the issues that we need to face. And those dumb things include things like putting an undischarged bankrupt on the committee as the chairman. Dumb things like giving £80,000 to a chairman to pay his mortgage off. And I'll stop there because there's a list. So we do have to think about what are the decisions that our branches are making that might generate that Daily Mail moment. And I talked a bit about, actually, it's a drinking den this morning. You know, we do have a branch where we've had to close it and reopen it and restart it to get all of those branch club associates out and generate that Phoenix branch back again so that we could clear out all those people who just saw it as a drinking den. Because isn't this what we're supposed to be? We're supposed to be a member-led welfare charity supporting the RAF family. That's what we are supposed to be. And we have to make sure that our values and behaviours support that across the board so that we are consistent in that delivery and we keep doing it in the right way and we are supportive. And more importantly, it's not just the people in this room, it's not just the branches that are represented here, it's all of the branches. And this is a real sad thing. We can have a branch of 150 members that can't get 3 people to create a committee, so the branch will close. But as I said earlier, asking the branch on the day of the AGM who can step forward is too late. And yet when we get to the SGM to close the branch, the ADs do a great job of re-standing up and re-brigading a committee because they've gone and asked people. They've picked up the phone, they've talked to people, they've cajoled them, they've encouraged them. We end up standing up a committee again. And maybe we need to think about doing that 6 months before we think about retiring from the committee, not on the day we're going to announce it. And committee sustainability is the biggest reason our branches are closing. There is support for the branches, and this is just an example of the clothing because it's downstairs. But this has got role descriptors, what you're supposed to be doing, trustee stuff. There's a lot of support on the website for branches to help you and the other branches to do the right things, to have the right things in place to support you. And I hope you go and look at it, and it is literally promotion on the end of the web address, and it will take you there. What we've also done is provide 74 branches with a free website. And that means that they're getting a feed from the RAF website, which is not brilliant, I will admit. I'm working on it. To their website, plus the ability to put their information on. But it means they also get the benefits of being inside the data systems, the web systems. And when we make updates to the websites, their websites also get updated. So all of that benefit and economies of scale comes through. And I would encourage you all to talk to the team if you want to get your branch one of the websites. But it's not all doom and gloom. We have had 6 branches stand up, and they're not all virtual branches either, because we need a mixed economy. Branches are the lifeblood of the association, and we can't just survive on virtual branches. We need real branches as well. And we need to make sure we keep that mixed economy working and drawing together. So congratulations to those, and if you're in the room today, welcome. But membership leads us naturally to welfare. And we need to think about, without the membership, we couldn't deliver the welfare that we do, and without the welfare, would we have the membership and the finances? And it is a virtuous circle between all 3. But let me just give you some stats that I'm sure you're all familiar with. The population at large is ageing. and we're just a microcosm of that overall population, and we're all ageing too. But this slide, which is only for England, so apologies to all of my Welsh and Scottish colleagues, the two slices of this circle that worry me are the no and little help and family and friends. So almost 70% of people in England who need care are not getting it. And as we continue to have austerity squeezing on that social care market, that means less and less will be delivered. So more pressure will come onto the charity sector, and more pressure will come onto organisations like ourselves to try and help and deliver that social care. And this is something that the Care Quality Commission published recently. And they talk about primary care reaching a tipping point and the demand for services growing. So the regulator that regulates us, one of our many regulators that regulates us, has also seen this and has published this to government, but government have not yet made the step forward. Because overall, our market is about 1.5 million strong. And this is some work that the Benevolent Fund did to do the analysis from some Royal British Legion work. And this is the bedrock of the work that David and the team and our team do to understand what the need is likely to be in the future. But you might say, well, with a declining Air Force, it's going to get smaller, isn't it? Well, actually, there's some good news for the people in this room, and there's some really good news for a bit of the people in this room. So if you look at the green line, that's the average expectancy for the population. The red line is if you served in the military, you're likely to live longer, on average, than normal members. So well done, everybody. However, what's even better is if you served in the Air Force, you're going to live longer than the average military person. So well done again, everybody. And even better for maybe the front row, if you were a senior officer, you'll live even longer. Easy life, absolutely right. So that declining population, yes, the forecast is it'll decline, but by 2030, that's only going to be down to 1 million. What's our ambition? What do we think that will generate in terms of need? And we're seeing the need change very much. So the requirement for the association to keep growing, to keep sustaining itself, to keep driving the welfare isn't going to go away in a hurry. And we are going to need to be here for much longer than people think. And I'm going to talk about RAF 100 later, but I'd like you not to think about the end of the experiment, but about the beginning of the next 100 years. And this is about beginnings and not endings. But what do we see? What are the key issues that we're seeing? And John touched on them around self-care, mobility, relationship, social isolation, psychological well-being, mental health, and underlying financial issues. Doesn't matter where you are in this room, young or old, most of those will touch you. And none of those things are restricted just to the veteran community. They're also being seen in the serving community. Some more feedback that we had. And this is feedback from people we weren't helping, which is also a bit sad. Because what we've seen is a growth in welfare, and John touched on this, and we've tried to do a little bit of understanding our casework. And this is the real casework end of what we're doing. And when we looked at what we needed to respond to it, and to the Care Act, what we've identified is we needed a professional welfare lead. What we couldn't have anymore is non-qualified people looking after our welfare delivery. Frankly, the ADs who are not qualified as welfare professionals being responsible for the professional lead for welfare professionals. So what you'll have seen with Rory as the Director of Welfare and Policy, he's probably overqualified, but then he is a Marine, so he's got to make up for it somehow. Then importantly, we have Sophie as the Head of Welfare, who is a qualified social worker with a specialism in social care. Now that's the kind of professional lead we need to make sure we're doing the right things, and she can provide that overview that's appropriate to the area welfare teams, who've all been required to get qualified to diploma level, as have their assistants. You'll have seen the changes in the nationally accredited training for the caseworkers and the HWOs and even the befrienders. So if you want to be a befriender, you will be DBS checked, you will be interviewed, you will be trained, and you can fall out of the process at any one of those points before you get anywhere near a beneficiary. Because it's important that we don't have a Daily Mail moment. It's important that we provide quality support care to our beneficiaries. But it's not just true in the area welfare structure, it's also true in the hotels. And all of the hotel staff have to be qualified and properly trained. And some of the hotel staff have to go through this every year because of CQC requirements. So one of our many regulators makes sure that we keep doing that. And then when we peel all of that back and look at where's that 46% come from, actually there's some interesting and strange growth. I'm not sure what Joe and Bob have been doing in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we're trying to find out. But what you're seeing is a growth across the board. And what we're mostly seeing is what we're calling soft welfare. This is not about me spending David's money, although I'm very happy to do it, David, and more the merrier. This is about that wider remit of isolation and loneliness issues that we're supporting that are coming through to us. So we're seeing much more demand for that soft welfare than we are for financial welfare. And when you look at a map of the UK, what we also see is because of the changing landscape of the branches, although it's difficult to tell the blue and red dots, HWOs and caseworkers, what you should be able to see is lots of the UK. And those are the gaps in the welfare provision. So what we're looking to do is bring volunteers on. And that's why the volunteering programme is so important for us, so that we can fill those gaps to meet the needs of the beneficiaries in those areas. Because without the volunteers in those areas, we can't provide that UK-wide service and support. And so we've had to create stuff to recruit people who are not members, generally, of the association. And we're not trying to sell them membership, well, to start with anyway. We're trying to get them to come and adopt the cause, to volunteer with us and for us, to drive the cause, to drive that welfare activity. And if we do the things right at that point, they will become a member naturally, because they'll recognise the value in the association. So overall, Rory will talk about a figure of 100,000, and if you put the 86 and the 13,000 together, you will start to see the scale of the activity that we're up to. But we've also started to build in some quality assurance mechanisms to make sure that we are doing the right thing with and for the beneficiaries. And Rory's got a bit more to do, because only 93% of them thought their needs were met. So we need to improve that at least another 5% before we're getting close to being right. But for the first time, we now know what our beneficiaries think of the service we're giving them. And to be fair to him, he's not listening, that's not bad at 93, but there's work to do. We've also had 2,000 requests for financial help. We've distributed over 2 million. That'll show you how the boxes are done there. And David, can I thank you for your 1.3 million? If you could just give me a cheque for another 1.3 million while you're here, that'd be great. Thanks very much. We'd appreciate that. And of course, John talked about befriending, contact houses, Wi-Fi. All of those are really important to us, and they're all structured around loneliness and isolation. And what we've done is the befriending thing is really important in that isolation and loneliness. And what I'd just like to do is a quick case study. And I'm sure you'll give me the answer to this, but how do you know a Harrier pilot's in the room? Thank you. Come on, a bit louder, work with me. So they'll tell you. So they've really got problems with self-confidence, lack of personality, inability to communicate well, lack of EQ, yeah? So to keep it anonymous, because obviously this is a welfare case, we'll call him Gary, okay? So Ted, as you can see on the right of this picture, is in the befriending system, and he gives Gary about an hour, hour and a half every week, where he talks to him to make sure he's okay. and make sure that he's now feeling warm about himself and his self-confidence is growing and it's sorted out. And Gary's feeling much better in life and he can go out and do his day job because he was struggling a bit as a Harrier pilot to communicate well with people, understand what was going off. And of course, Ted has done a brilliant job befriending Gary. But also, Ted sadly had his medal stolen a few years ago. So what we've done is we've had a replacement set made for him. And Gary, being a Harrier pilot, wasn't really sure what to do until we told him he could behave like a Harrier pilot, throw his weight around and organise a dinner at Northolt Station. So he did. And we got Ted and Gary to Northolt, but we also got some SAC engineers who did the same job as Ted did many, many years ago. And they had a fabulous lunch together. And what's happened to Ted, from the people that we know that know Ted, is even Gary has changed the quality of his life. Even Gary has helped him, and it's been fantastic. And if somebody like Gary, who's got a demanding, stressful senior role in the Air Force, can give an hour a week to do the befriending, it shows you how important it is. And we've got stories like that all over the place of how important befriending is to those who receive it. And I'm really pleased to say, last year we had 696 volunteers step forward. That's a brilliant, brilliant achievement. And thanks should go to all of the team that were involved in that. And 70% of those are trained as befrienders, and we've allocated them out to people. So we're changing real people's lives on a daily basis now through simple things, and it's about giving time and your effort to go there. It's not always about money, till later, of course. But here's some of the marketing that we've done to try and think about how we can engage with people who might be a bit proud, might not want to admit that they need to talk to somebody, to get them into the system and also recruit those volunteers to come along and help us. The wings break hotels are really important as well to make sure that we're dealing with the respite, loneliness and isolation. And, there are numerous tales about people who are going into there. But for all of that 2,500 people who go in, the time they spend either in Richard Peck, Rothbury or Flowerdown is really important to them. And for many, it's their lifeline. Those 2 weeks they spend there, either for them or their carers, are really important. And that's what we've got to be looking at and how we do it. And I'd like to thank all of the staff that work in those hotels, to say thank you to them for what they do, because without them, all of these people would struggle. And we've also marketed the hotels and done more stuff. So you're starting to see a theme, I hope, coming through of us stepping up to the plate, promoting things more, doing things in a better way. Trying to run the business side of the charity properly is supporting the welfare and membership side. Hemsby Chalets, how many of you know about those? They're another bit of a well-kept secret in the association, and they're run by the South East and Eastern area, and they're a great facility. And if you get in quick, they won't be able to go in this summer, so you'll block them out. So everybody book in first before they do, because they're a great place to go, but they're another facility that we haven't shouted about and promoted that well across the association. We've also looked at how we fill the voids in Dowding, up at Moffat, and in Rothbury and in Wexford. So we started to look at how we promote that as well. And we'll start to include Storrington on this as well. So we'll make sure that we've got all of these fully occupied. We've also secured some money from the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme and from the war pensions. And we've also lobbied where necessary to make sure local authorities deliver what they're supposed to do under the Care Act 2014 and not just can say, yeah, we know we're supposed to do it, but we haven't got any money. It's not really a good answer. It's not an acceptable answer. And we've worked hard on that as well. And we've make sure that we've kept a few people honest there, but also looked at what are the unintended consequences of reduced funding plus more demanding requirements under the Care Act. One of our perennial successes is Storybook Wings. And now we've extended it slightly to grandparents. We're seeing a growth year on year of stories, and hopefully you've all visited the stand downstairs. and the team that are doing that, and we're seeing a monthly growth in that process. And some of that's because we've promoted Storybook Wings again to the potential beneficiaries about what you might do. And what we've really looked at is what does that mean to the children's loneliness and isolation? And some research that the guys have done is to understand now, we don't send that out as soon as the parent goes on detachment, deployment or whatever. We wait about 6 weeks, because that is where the research said that's the greatest time of stress, isolation and separation anxiety for those children, and suddenly something pops through the door from the parent or the grandparent and actually starts to address that. So we've started to really think about how we can make best use of our resources. Wi-Fi. I hope the serving guys in particular over there really appreciate it. Everywhere I go, they tell me they do. But again, this is an initiative that's been driven by Alan Opie and the team at High Wycombe, so that we can address loneliness and isolation on station. So it's not just, again, for the veteran audience, and we're looking to extend that over the course of 2017 and 18, so that we can do 2/3 of the RAF estate. We've also given out a little bit of funding to the stations as well, and there's a reasonable spread and list of stations that we've done and supported on various activities and initiatives, from footballs to drinks bottles through to contact houses, bikes, all sorts of things. We also support some minority sports or sporting activities, and this is about trying to drive the awareness of the association amongst those groups, because one of the paybacks for us is every team or structure we support, not only are they to help us, but they also have to drive membership. So every member of all of those teams has to become a member, and they have to recruit members as well for us to receive the support that we're giving them. And we get a bit of it back as well. So not just our beneficiaries, do we support them at the point of when they become a beneficiary, but some of them turn around and then support us and raise money to come back to us. So it's important that we recognise it's not always a one-way flow, and Stu and Team Legless do a great job for us, and we'd like to thank him as well for the support that he gives us in this. Now, the RAF Families Federation was touched on earlier today, and I think a little bit of misinformation was given unintendedly. The Family Federation is not a separate charity, it's not a separate organisation, it's a department of the association, and jointly with the Benevolent Fund, we run the contract for the Air Force for the RAF Families Federation. And it's an integral part of the association, but it has a really important role in supporting the families, the serving reservists and the singles in terms of giving a voice to them outside the normal chain of command. And it's a really important part of what we do in terms of that support mechanism. And listed there are just a few of the things that they've worked on. But if you look at their website, you will see a lot of surveys, a lot of responses that they deal with in terms of supporting the Air Force. We've also worked in partnership with a number of other organisations, because it's quite clear we cannot be experts in everything. We have to cut our cloth accordingly to our expertise, and in doing so, we have partnered with other organisations where there's a need for support and welfare activity, and we've paid for that support and activity to support it, but the experts have delivered it, not us. And we continue to work with relevant partners to make sure we can deliver that. So as John said, we've invested, but I hope you all agree that what we've invested has helped us deliver that growth in membership, that continued growth in membership, and responded to quite a significant increase in the welfare demand that we've seen, which in part has come from the increased awareness of the association through the work that we've done. So I just want to talk a little bit about this subject, because we can't do the first two unless we can pay for it. And although John gave you that snapshot at the right-hand side, I thought it would be helpful to you to contextualise, because some of you think back a little bit further as to how we've consolidated and grown the assets of the association over that period of time. But what we have to do fundamentally is grow the underlying income of the association by around £2 million between now and the end of 2018. Because that's what we're seeing, the growth in the demand of what we're doing come through. And we're also looking forward to how do we keep that growth going through to 2020 to make sure we continue to support the demand for welfare and membership activities that we're going. So there's a lot of work that's got to be done there, and we can't just do it in the ways we've always done it. We need new and innovative ways of doing things. And quite oddly, people seem to want to do strange things. And thank you very much at the back there for doing lots of these strange things. But people do like to jump out of aircraft with, Barry, talk to me about that later, will you? Jumping about an aircraft. But they also like to get flies in their mouths on top of wings. I don't understand this at all. Another one, but very kindly, Vic Norman from the Breitling team have donated a number of wing walks, and this has proved a very, very successful fundraising tool for us. And everybody that stood on top of a wing and had a fantastic time has also raised a lot of money for us. And it's this sort of innovation that we need to keep doing to make sure we grow that. We've also done a couple of fun things, one in Lincoln, where we've had everybody dressed in a Santa suit for a run, and that's raised us a lot of money again. And equally, the boys down in the Falklands, we shipped a load of Santa suits down to the Falklands, courtesy of our friends at Bryce, and they did a run round the Falklands as well and raised loads of money, and I think they may just have had a good time, and a couple of bevies may just have been drunk at the same time. We've also had the families of, this is of a pilot who passed away, and that's his extended family, and they did a run for us. And every member of that family raised a minimum of £1,000 for us. Brilliant work. Like to thank them for what they did for us in memory of a member of their family and their son. We're also extending the way in which we do the city collections, and we're doing things slightly differently and looking at Birmingham, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Manchester, and thinking differently about how we do the traditional collections and thinking about when we do them in the year. But we need to keep investing in all of that to grow that income stream. And it's really important that we lever every pound we spend to get £4 or £5 back every time we do something. So it's important that we keep investing. And if you go back to the 2009 crash, all of the charities that came through that 2009 crash that did really well are those that invested in fundraising and marketing. And the Charity Commission and the NCVO have done a really interesting piece of research on those that did well, and those are the ones that strategically invested. So let's talk about communication and marketing. Chris spoke this morning about how the brand, the association, the logo is perceived. And this is the results of the research from NFP Synergy, who do a quarterly research that most of the COBSIO members do. David, I think, does it for the Ben Fund as well. And sorry, David, we're just on top. It's only a few percent. And as you can see, actually the awareness of the association is quite good, and we've been building that. But that's not come overnight. As you'll see from this graph, that awareness and that recording has been growing steadily, quarter after quarter after quarter, to make sure that people are aware of the association. So the research is demonstrating that what we're doing is working within the marketplace. This was also a very important one for us at the end of the year, of those members of COBSIO where the members of the public felt were trustworthy. And I'm really pleased to say that the association came out at the top of the list. A challenge for Rachel and the team is to make sure we stay there, because this is really important, particularly when we go collecting at supermarkets and other events that the public are aware of. And this is really quite good news for us, and we need to keep this up. We've seen growth in our social media, and this just happens to be Facebook, but it's pretty characteristic of all of our social media. It's starting to grow and continue to grow. Lots to do though. I thought also this might be an interesting one for you, just to understand the power of regional media and the work that we do through PR. This was in a brief period in 2016 where we measure, and if you want to see all of these news items, they're all on the portal on the website. But we put out collectively nearly 1,500 news items. And that's a brilliant score, and thank you to everybody that contributed, although I do think 1,400 of them were Roy from Leicester with his newsletter. But the key thing there is the reach, that 22.64 million people reach. That's what it's about in terms of the awareness. And if we'd had to pay for that marketing, that would have cost us £1.5 million. So it's important that we're clever, we're thoughtful, we do good editorial activity to drive that message forward. Here's just a quick snapshot of what some of those are. We also have airmail, and airmail, we keep getting really positive things back. We are trying to evolve it gently to refresh it and move it forward, but airmail is still seen as a valuable part of the membership package. But we also do something for the serving as well, so it's a slightly different message, aimed in a slightly different way for the serving members, and this gets sent out to stations. Now, the area chairman asked us to look at the squadron badge type approach. And if you were lucky enough to go into the RAF club, you'll see quite a lot of these where all of the badges are stored. So we have done some work with the Royal College of Arms, and this is a mock-up of what it might be if the Royal College of Arms actually does a squadron type badge for the association to protect the role of the eagle and globe, and also allow us to use the crown on the top of the badge, which of course we can't do unless the College of Arms says so. And although the area chairman have prompted this, it's come up to council, we've gone through it, I wanted to share it with you today to see if there was any violent objections to us progressing this through the College of Arms, because when they finalise it, that's it, it's fixed. And this will effectively become the squadron badge of the association. So your blazer badge and other badges, this is what it'll be. It will also stop, I think there's 12 different versions of the eagle and globe on people's blazers in this room. So hopefully we'll just go to a single version of the eagle and globe, which will be done properly. So can I just pause and go, are you generally content with this as an approach? Yes. Super. We will keep working with the College of Arms to push that through, but I thought it was opportune to present it to you today so you've got an idea of what's going off, and then you could comment on it. Now, however, there's lots of other stuff that you need to be aware of and I need to be aware of so that you're aware of it, if you see what I mean, because everybody here also has their own charity. And there are lots of regulatory challenges coming down the line, particularly around the Code of Good Governance for the charities and how that works and what we're trying to do there. We will keep you informed of it, but again, just in the back of the mind, think of the Daily Mail moment. Please don't elect any undischarged bankrupts to your committee. We've got the General Data Protection Regulations coming. I know there are people in this room who are still struggling with DPA, but next May, GDPR comes in. And if you think DPA is bad, wait till you see this. And we've already got an internal working group working on this to try and work out what it is exactly we've got to do, how we've got to do it. But what you will find, sadly, is we will be writing to you to ask you for your consents to be able to write to you, even as a member. Yeah? And you'll find lots of other organisations will be doing this. Please make sure you pass the message back to your branches and your members to return it and just tick all the boxes. Otherwise, we can't write to you. And what's really interesting is we've got some committee members and branch secretaries who've opted out of us communicating with them, which is really quite bizarre. But this will make the whole life much worse. This is going to distract us all for a little while, but we need to keep our eyes on it for a couple of reasons. One, for our overseas members and what the impact there is, but also on things like VAT, because VAT is a European tax. And many of the protections that we receive as a charity are enshrined in European law, not in UK law. And the, what do they call it? The Great Exclusion Bill or something. I've forgotten the name now. The Great Repeal Bill is actually the Great Inclusion Bill. Because what the bill will do is enshrine all European law currently in place in the UK into UK legislation. And for us, VAT is a really difficult subject for us. We have about £450,000 to £500,000 a year of unrecoverable VAT. And so the work that Andrew and I have been doing to make sure we recover as much of that as possible will possibly be hampered by this. So we're working hard to get as much of that back as we can, but we don't produce a lot of output VAT. We see this will continue, and this is clear around local authorities, government spending, some of the other issues that are going off, particularly around social care, the NHS. You know, the cyber attack of yesterday and today is about old systems in the NHS. They're going to now divert a load of money to fix that. Where's that money going to come from? Well, it's the front line, isn't it? A number of hospitals said, please don't come to us for A&E today. This is also key. Now, it's whether you're the £10 giver, I think this is my gypsy's warning here, whether you're the £10 giver or you're the £1,000 giver, this is also an issue for us that we need to look at. These are other issues that we're facing in the service community that we need to think about and respond to. How will this change how the RAF operates? How will this change what the welfare need is? How will we work with them? This is also another one. People are not staying in for life. They're leaving, they're going to have another career, they're doing other things. How are we going to support that process and mechanism? Partner employment, I think, is the right word now, since Chrissy Elliott told us off for using spousal employment. But how do we help partners with employment? How do we address some of the childcare issues that David's looking at by giving employment to the partners? However, we do have to be careful. What's coming back from the public is doing good by itself is not enough. It's the way we do it is important. So we need to think about what our fundraising and activities are. Equally, governance is becoming a much bigger issue. Fundraising regulator, charity commission, you name it, FCA, HCA, CQC, governance is becoming a much bigger issue for us as an organisation and the sector we're in. It's getting towards the end, honestly, boss. I just quickly want to whiz through this because it would be remiss of me not to touch on it because it's coming next year. This is what Steve has set the team to deliver and what we're trying to do. This is what it might look like in terms of the events, but we'll talk to you more about this nearer the time in terms of what happens. But as you can see there, we're involved in some things, particularly this conference next year. We're looking to do other things around fundraising, and you'll see there are some hardy annuals in there. There'll also be a major activity in London on the 10th of July. That will be followed by REACT, then Scampton, Battle of Britain service, and other things around the country, particularly involving static displays of aircraft. Lots on that day. We don't have the tickets, by the way. We won't be allocating the tickets. Please don't ask me. I won't have any to give out, just to say that now. What we are doing is the lead on the city collections, Charity of the Year events, digital fundraising, and any veteran participation on the 10th of July event, and that'll be run through Elsa and the team as normal. However, just to pause and get you to think a little bit beyond RAF 100. As I said, it might be the end of the experiment, but it's all about the beginning of the next phase. And I am concerned that in 2019 there is the potential that we lose a number of branches because they'll run out of steam in 2018, the puff will have gone, the enthusiasm will have gone, and we need to be thinking now collectively of how we help sustain our branches through to 2019 and beyond. And I have real concerns that if we're not careful and we don't think about that, and we don't plan that and engage with the area councils, that could actually be a seminal moment for us in terms of branch numbers. So what's our approach been? Let's focus on members, branches and beneficiaries, maintain the excellence of our welfare activity, make sure we grow and sustain that membership, and then harness the capacity and capabilities of everybody in this room. Because collectively, we're really good. We can do lots of great things, and we need to make sure we do that. John has touched on our objectives, but let's think about 100,000, leading provider of welfare services, growing our income, make sure we champion the interests of everybody here, and that we have a good organisation that supports that. But there's two groups of people we couldn't do without. The first one are our employees, and I want to thank every employee that's here for their contribution and work. And the other group of people we couldn't do without are our members and beneficiaries, and I want to thank all of you for the hard work and efforts that you've put in to making sure this association has rejuvenated, is rejuvenating, and to help us deliver that ambitious target that John and the council have set for us. So finally, what it's all about for me is about that leadership, culture, making sure we're evidenced and insight-based in terms of our decision-making, we drive our digital capabilities, and we have good operational effectiveness. I think it's 3 o'clock, boss. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I'd like to say to Nick, thank you very much indeed, Nick. That was wonderful. I know that Nick could have given you at least another hour on what's his favourite subject. He will have the opportunity tomorrow to almost do that, depending on the questions that you pose to him. And please don't, well, thank God that's over. Think about what he said to you. There will be bits in there where you'll go, actually, I'm not sure if those bits tie up, or how do I do that? Tomorrow morning, when we're back in here, will be the ideal opportunity to do that, because it will be totally relaxed. It will be the last thing before we go home, but leave here, please, with a very clear idea of, okay, how are you going to be part of that next step, that bit beyond the Air Force centenary? 2019 is going to be a challenge. The whole nation is going to be absolutely exhausted from the fatigue of commemorating the end of the First World War, as well as all the other things we've been doing. So actually keeping what we're doing going is not going to be simply putting one foot in front of the other. It's going to need you to be imaginative. Try things that are going to appeal that we've not perhaps tried before. And really think about human beings and, okay, what makes people want to join your team? Well, actually, it's the team stuff. So there's great stuff there. I know you've all got great imaginations, but let's use tomorrow morning as a really good opportunity to test Mr. B in some of this visionary stuff, because actually getting that right now, getting some of those bits of foundation in place now are going to be very important in 18 months' time. And of course, Nick will be on the stage here along with the officers of the association, so you can challenge us all. Anyway, moving on. Now that really relaxed bit, the bit where you can sit back and just let it wash over you, because it is the business. And we've got the RAF presentation team standing in the wings. Ladies and gentlemen, relax and love every minute of this. Gentlemen, the floor of yours.
Sirs, ma'ams, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Just following on for that, please don't relax too much. It is a bit stuffy. I know you've just had your dinner. Would rather you didn't fall asleep through the films. I'd like to start by actually saying thank you, firstly for inviting us here today to talk to you, but sincerely on not just behalf of the team, but for everybody in the Royal Air Force, all the boots on the ground, abroad and at home. Thank you for everything that you do. Everything from local support on stations, coffee mornings, play areas, to the storybook wings schemes, right up to things like the contact houses. Everything that you do makes a difference to life, day-to-day life in the Royal Air Force. So thank you, sincerely and genuinely, thank you very much. The presentation we're actually going to give you today is about 35 to 40 minutes long. I know a lot of you have seen it before, so please bear with it. I recognise a few faces in the audience. It's 35 to 40 minutes long. You'll be glad to know it's not just myself droning on. We've got Mr. Roddleson, who is far more eloquent than I am. We've got lots of good video and narration to go with it as well to explain what's going on. A little bit different today, unfortunately, we're not allowed to take any questions afterwards because of political purdah, in case we influence how anybody's going to vote. Not that we ever would, but I do apologise for that. I'm not just trying to duck out of any difficult questions. That's the direction we've got. So without further ado, we'll go for the first video, please.
acknowledged.
As the Royal Air Force presentation team, we travel around the UK talking to various groups of people about the roles, the responsibilities and the relevance of the Royal Air Force today. Now, we do this for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's to demonstrate that alongside the Royal Navy and the British Army, the Royal Air Force works as a defence asset on behalf of UK government to give our nation's leaders choices in times of crisis. Secondly, it's to show that as the UK's custodian of air power, the Royal Air Force relies on cutting-edge technology, aircraft and equipment. And finally, and most importantly, it's to show that our people are our greatest asset. So on that note, we'll just take a moment to introduce ourselves. I'm Flight Lieutenant Richard Smithson and I'm the head of the Royal Air Force presentation team. I joined the Air Force in 2004 as a direct entrant pilot and obviously went straight into training. I graduated that in 2007 and was posted to 18 Squadron RAF Odium as a Chinook pilot. I served there for 5 years, during which I took part in numerous exercises throughout the world, from up above the Arctic Circle down into Africa and many places in between. I've seen some amazing sights, done some amazing jobs, and most importantly, worked with some absolutely fantastic people. However, the highlight of that 5 years was 4 operational tours of Afghanistan, a fact of which I am extremely proud, and again, that's because of the people that I worked with. Following that, I was posted as a search and rescue pilot up to RAF Leconfield, which sadly no more exists, where we provided search and rescue cover for the North Sea oil areas, the north of England and the Lake District. Following that, I was back to RAF Odium for 18 months and now find myself here in this extremely privileged position, getting out to speak to members of the public like yourselves about the roles of the Royal Air Force. So that's me in a nutshell. I'll hand you over to my warrant officer, Mr. Roddleson.
Thanks, sir. Sirs, ma'ams, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Warrant Officer Andy Roddleson. I'm a personnel support tradesman and I joined the Royal Air Force 32 years ago, back in 1985. I'm actually a third generation warrant officer. My father was one, as was his father. So that takes my family's Royal Air Force lineage back to 1937, and that's something of which I'm incredibly proud. I've served across the United Kingdom, in Germany and Norway, but the highlight of my career was 3 years spent as the assistant to the Defence Attaché in the British Embassy, Copenhagen. So while my boss, the Defence Attaché, was busy doing the cocktail party circuit and eating far too many canapés than was good for him, I was maintaining the UK's bilateral defence relationship with the Danish Armed Forces. On operations, I've served in Iraq, Saudi Arabia, the Falkland Islands, and most recently in Afghanistan as the Chief Clerk to 904 Expeditionary Air Wing at Kandahar Air Base. I'd now like to introduce you to my colleague, SAC Tech, Chris Churchman.
Thanks, sir. Good morning, good afternoon, sirs, mums, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Senior Aircraftsman Christopher Churchman. I joined the Royal Air Force in 2012. By trade, I'm an ICT technician, so we look after the radios, radars, computer systems and satellite systems for the Royal Air Force. I've recently been posted into this privileged position on the RAF presentation team, where I provide IT support. Previous to this, I was on number 90 signals unit based at RAF Leman in North Yorkshire. Whilst I was there, I was privileged to deploy across the world. I went to Malta, to Crete and to Afghanistan on operations, as well as numerous air exercises across the UK. In my short time in the Air Force so far, my highlight was 6.5 months in Afghanistan at the end of 2014, where we removed over 1,000 users worth of computer and telephone equipment from Kandahar Air Base, marking the end of 10 years continuous RAF presence there. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Chris. As we approach the 100th anniversary of its formation in 1918, the Royal Air Force continues to protect our nation, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and maintain its peace and prosperity by deterring potential adversaries, protecting UK assets both at home and abroad, and by projecting the UK's power and influence around the world. With a worldwide reputation for delivering air power excellence based on past conflicts, the present Royal Air Force works alongside partner nations to try and build global stability, whilst continuing to invest in technology, in innovation, and in its people to meet any future challenge. This hard-won reputation is upheld by the Royal Air Force's greatest asset, its people. Together, our whole force, which comprises regular and reserve personnel, civil servants and contractors, forms a dedicated and cost-effective team which genuinely does deliver a world-renowned air force. In addition to this whole force, we have veterans organisations, service charities, local communities, families, university air squadrons and the Air Cadet Organisation, all which form what we call the Royal Air Force family. And it is the unwavering support of this family and people like yourselves that allow us to do our job, to dedicate ourselves to our job and our country. Now, this presentation is going to cover a broad spectrum of what the Royal Air Force does, and we'll base that on what we call the 4 pillars of air power. These are control of the air mobility and lift, ISTAR and attack. ISTAR standing for intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition and reconnaissance. But before we tell you about those and the future of the Royal Air Force, I'd like to introduce the head of the Air Force, not in person, he's coming on in a moment, the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal, Sir Stephen Hillier.
It's a remarkable time for the Royal Air Force because we've rarely been busier in operations throughout our history. As I speak right now, over 15 operations across 4 continents worldwide. For the first time in generations, we're planning to grow our front line. We're going to have more combat air, more air transport, more ISTAR capabilities to ensure that we can continue to deliver all operations. We have world-class equipment, which is flown, maintained and supported by world-class people. And I think it's vital that as the person who leads the Air Force, I remain visible, engaged and fully connected with the whole force of people in the Royal Air Force to the very best of my ability.
The principal duty of the Royal Air Force is to defend the nation's airspace. In protecting the skies above the UK, the Royal Air Force is exercising the first responsibility of any government, defence of the nation. Royal Air Force personnel protect our skies with courage, with determination and with resolve. Now, threats to UK airspace can come from various areas, such as foreign military aircraft, as you see quite often on the news, to airliners under terrorist control, to something as simple as a light aircraft who simply got airborne and not turned his radio on. Whatever the threat may be, we have our Typhoon fighter jet aircraft on what we call quick reaction alert, who are there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and are supported by our Voyager air-to-air refuelling aircraft and some of the most advanced radar equipment in the world, and they will guarantee the safety and security of our skies. Now, should the worst come to the worst, and offensive action is required, these aircraft are always armed with advanced short and medium-range air-to-air missiles. And in the future, they're going to be armed with what you can see in the corner of the screen there, the Meteor missile. This is a revolutionary missile, European developed, and will offer some of the greatest advances in missile technology we've seen in a long time, such as a ramjet engine, which will allow the missile to fly further and faster than any other any other missile out there, and give our pilots the cutting edge in any future aerial combat.
One of the main roles of defence is to protect the United Kingdom and its territories, and the Royal Air Force's contribution to that is protecting the skies. We maintain control of the air 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We work alongside our partner nations in Europe, and within British airspace there's close coordination between the civilian air traffic control agencies and the military air traffic control agencies. And if we see activity that may appear suspicious, it could be an airliner not following its flight plan, maybe not communicating correctly, or maybe an aircraft that's coming into airspace without permission, we have the ability to launch fighter aircraft to go and investigate what's going on. We call that quick reaction alert. We use a graduated response. Firstly, we try and achieve radar contact, then we'll try and achieve radio contact, and then we'll try and achieve visual contact to make sure we take every chance of contacting the aircraft and working out why it's not behaving the way we wish it to. We are given very clear rules of engagement as when we can and cannot intercept aircraft. The ultimate decisions are taken by the higher levels of government. The Typhoon's suitable for the QRA role because it's quick, it can be launched at a few minutes' notice, it's armed with modern weapons, and the communication systems mean it can talk to the people on the ground and also other aircraft in the air which might be conducting the same activity.
It has to take us no more than 10 minutes from getting the call to getting the wheels off the ground. Sometimes we'll be given intelligence before we're airborne as to the nature of the scramble. However, a lot of the time we'll be getting airborne and we'll be briefed when we're in the air.
They have absolute priority over everything that happens on the airfield. We provide the initial control service to them before we then hand them over to Swanwick military, who take them into their operating area and hand them to the fighter controllers.
Civilians and military supervisors work really closely together during a scramble, and the civilians will essentially try and clear the airspace around and ahead of the potential threat aircraft so that that aircraft, once met by the Typhoons, can be escorted without any other aircraft in the way of it. You have to be able to remain calm under pressure. The airspace is so dynamic, things change all the time.
If the fighters need to stay airborne longer than their normal sortie length, we can refuel them in the air using the Voyager aircraft to double or sometimes triple the length of time the Typhoons can be in the air. For operations where you don't have control of the air and an adversary may bring aircraft in, that could threaten the aircraft you've got in the airspace or the people you've got on the ground. So we try and achieve control of the air to make sure we're protecting the assets we've got flying around and the people operating underneath us. For the future, control of the air is going to continue to be a central function of the Royal Air Force's air power. The Meteor missile is an advanced missile which will have greater technology than the current suite of missiles. It's going to have a longer range, which means we can intercept aircraft earlier, but of course it also means we're protecting our crews because they don't have to go as close to the enemy aircraft.
In a world challenged by political instability and natural disasters, the RAF's air mobility fleet of transport aircraft and helicopters gives the UK the ability to respond rapidly to any crises worldwide. Our modern Voyager, C-17 and A400M Atlas aircraft give us strategic reach across the globe, while the BAE 146 and Hercules operate across shorter distances. The A400M Atlas aircraft embodies technological innovation in its flight deck design, which reduces crew workload, and its 4 turboprop engines which consume 20% less fuel per mission than similar engines. The RAF's forward-thinking approach to aeromedical evacuation is demonstrated through the Air Transportable Isolation Unit. This is a joint venture between the MOD and Department of Health, which allows RAF medical personnel to transport highly infectious patients by air. The RAF's modernised helicopter fleet provides battlefield mobility for the UK's armed forces. The Chinook, the latest variant of which has advanced avionics and an updated cockpit, provides heavy lift up to 10 tonnes, while the Puma's powerful new engines give it a major increase in performance, allowing it to deliver troops and humanitarian aid in harsh environments where required. Importantly, the RAF also makes a vital contribution to homeland resilience. With floods often inundating parts of the UK, the RAF regularly mobilises personnel and helicopters to assist the local authorities and emergency services to protect life and property and prevent any further damage or distress.
Air mobility is important because it gives our government choice in times of crisis. We can move people and equipment over long distances very quickly and at very short notice and deliver them straight to the point of need, be that on operations or in support of humanitarian or disaster relief efforts. Air mobility is essentially a force multiplier. It's not just about moving people and equipment, it's also about the ability to air-to-air refuel our aircraft. And we also work very closely with those in the aeromedical role to be able to provide a rapid aeromedical response. Strategic airlift is using the air mobility aircraft that we have to move a large amount of people and equipment over substantial distances, but tending to be operating into what we would define as well-found airfields, so long runways, concrete airstrips, passenger terminals. We then move into the tactical domain. That's the aircraft that are capable of flying in the threat environment, delivering people and equipment straight to the point of need, so being able to operate at low level above the ground, landing on rough and unprepared strips, and also not just delivering people and equipment by landing aircraft in those places, but also doing it whilst we're airborne, so opening the ramp and doors at the back of the aircraft to deliver people and equipment by parachute.
The C-17 has been involved in operations around the world. It's a fantastic aircraft for taking aid from the UK out to disaster-stricken areas. So it would be taking a lot of load into one main operating base for them to then disseminate further.
I'm a reserve logistics mover. We load and fly with the aircraft and unload at our destination. We can load baggage, vehicles, helicopters, so a real variety.
We will always maintain a high readiness state on the engineering side to keep those aircraft ready to deploy 24/7.
Voyager gives the Royal Air Force a unique capability, providing both air transport and air-to-air refuelling. I'm 23 years old myself. I've just come through approximately 4.5 years in training and I'm now operating the biggest Royal Air Force aircraft ever, and it's a rewarding challenge.
I'll be working on the C-130 Hercules aircraft. The first 10 weeks of load master training is all about the job you'll be doing on the ground. The second half is your flying training, and this is where you learn about airmanship qualities and more about the running of the actual aircraft and the aircraft systems.
The Chinook is a very capable platform. Its load lifting capability is enormous compared to other aircraft types. It's incredibly resilient, very, very reliable in the field.
We do everything from moving troops around to putting vehicles underneath the aircraft, and we'll do medical evacuation as well.
It's a pretty varied job. You could find yourself doing flood relief or abroad in operations anywhere in the world.
The Puma Mark II is a medium lift support helicopter, so primarily we'll be moving people around or freight either in the cabin or underslung in a net. It's very good in the urban operations side of life, being fairly small in comparison to the Chinook.
When A400M Atlas comes fully into service, it will offer incredible technology and some real advantages as we look to the future. And it will complement the roles that the C-130 performs in terms of tactical airlift. Where Atlas brings significant advantage is it can fly for a lot further, it can fly at faster speeds, it can fly higher, and also in terms of the amount of weight that we can put into the aircraft. So it's really this notion that with A400M Atlas we should be looking to carry loads that can't necessarily be put on a C-130 into places that our C-17 can't necessarily go. We've been working with our industry partners, Airbus Defence and Space and Flybe Aviation Services, to make sure that we've got a structure here to support the aircraft from a maintenance perspective. With 22 aircraft in total coming, A400M Atlas will form the backbone of the RAF's air mobility force.
All military activity requires an understanding of the environment that we are operating in. Through their sophisticated sensors, RAF intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft provide information and situational awareness to naval, air and ground forces. This capability combines advanced technology with the essential expertise of our people and gives political, military and humanitarian decision makers the information they need to plan and to act. RAF Rivet Joint, Sentry and Sentinel aircraft sense and interpret data from a wide spectrum of sources, allowing a recognisable air, land and maritime picture of an area of operations to be compiled. This picture can be enhanced by airborne imagery taken by RAF Typhoon and Tornado aircraft, giving British and Allied forces the information they need to complete their mission safely. RAF airborne intelligence gathering is also routinely performed by Reaper remotely piloted aircraft, which always operate under the control of a qualified crew. When undertaking arm reconnaissance, the Reaper can loiter over a target area for extended periods of time, producing a detailed reconnaissance picture. However, when strike action is required, crews always operate within legally bound and strictly enforced rules of engagement in accordance with UK and international law. RAF surveillance activity also extends into space. The 24-hour watch maintained by the Space Operations Coordination Centre at RAF High Wycombe and our advanced radar at RAF Fylingdales is a key part of the layered defence of the United Kingdom, providing a ballistic missile early warning capability and monitoring for space-based threats such as satellites colliding.
ISTAR, it is intelligence, it's the situation awareness and surveillance, it's the target acquisition and it's reconnaissance. It's the eyes and the ears so that we can deliver as much information as possible to enable commanders to make those difficult decisions, be that in the tactical environment, the operational environment, or indeed in the strategic environment. And in the operational world, we can never know enough about what's happening on the battlefield. The product which comes out of all of the ISTAR platforms is shared with all of our coalition partners so we can all make those difficult decisions just a little bit easier. If you look at the role of our Royal Air Force Regiment in their force protection, protecting the ground that we fly over around airfields, they will need to know what's going on in that picture. They will be linked into what we are providing so that as they round the next corner, they know what's there before they make those dangerous steps. We are looking after them as much as they're looking after us. The real beauty about the ISTAR force is its applicability, not just in combat zones. Of course, that's what we've ultimately procured the equipment for, and that's where we centralise a lot of our training. But the reality is, it's got broad application around the globe. The recent floods that we had in Cumbria, ISTAR was front and centre to go out there and survey the ground and look what's going on. So one of the beauties about ISTAR is it's got just as many applications in the peacetime in response to civil crisis as it has in the wartime.
The E3D radar gives you a picture of aircraft in several hundred miles of airspace. We can feed that information to a variety of other users. The purpose of the information is to give everyone the same air picture, to make sure their situational awareness is the same.
Our Sentinel aircraft is very good for wide area surveillance, using both its synthetic aperture radar, but also its ground moving target indicator.
A Reaper is a remotely piloted aircraft. It gathers a lot of information through a variety of sensors. There is trained aircrew controlling it, operating it, flying it. Being on the ground here allows us to add in more awareness through other systems that aid our decision-making in theatre.
The Rivet Joint, in effect, listens to what's going on in all sorts of different domains. It's a passive sensor. That in itself is very powerful when layered with all the other types of sensors that we have.
When we look at the ISTAR force, without the people that support the platforms, the capability would be nothing. The people that get into that aircraft, they are just the tip of the spear. It's the analysts that sit on the ground, miles away, that are the unsung heroes.
I'm currently an imagery analyst in the RAF Reserves. We analyse images that are gained from aircraft. We look to see what's going on in that imagery, write reports about it, so that then we can pass that information on to other people. It makes me proud that what I get to do maybe doesn't get seen by a lot of people, but we know that what we do helps not just people in the RAF, but people in the other forces as well.
And then behind all the analysts sits all of the support staff, be it technicians, suppliers, caterers, medics, all of which keep the heart beating of the iStar force. The iStar enterprise is growing. It is going to continue to dominate the battle space. P8 Poseidon is on the horizon. We have a Protector, a replacement for the Reaper unmanned air vehicle. And then we will see possibly a tripling of the amount of people within that force. So the iStar force is in growth, and it's a sustained growth well into the next decade.
The RAF's ultimate combat capability is the ability to participate in the most complex warfighting scenarios in support of UK national and overseas interests. RAF attack aircraft are capable of performing complex long-range missions involving airborne refuelling, overcoming enemy air defences on their way to destroying targets, and protecting themselves when returning through hostile airspace. The RAF's current fast-jet attack aircraft, Typhoon and Tornado, provide a flexible force capable of undertaking a wide spectrum of missions, from reconnaissance through to delivering precision-guided weapons. The Tornado remains a highly capable attack aircraft, while the Typhoon's capabilities are continually improved through an ongoing series of enhancements. The weapons used by our attack aircraft are state-of-the-art and supported by British industry. Specifically engineered to minimise collateral damage, the laser-guided Paveway 4 gives the RAF a precision bombing capability, while the world-class British-designed Brimstone missile allows our aircraft to hit fast-moving targets. The Storm Shadow standoff attack missile allows us to hit targets at long range and is among the most advanced of its kind in the world.
The attack role has always been significant for the Royal Air Force. It provides the commanders on the ground with a capability of delivering a precision strike. It's a great tool for the government to use initially, hopefully, as a deterrent. The enemy is now very aware of the capabilities that the Royal Air Force can bring to the fight, and therefore often just the presence of having an aircraft in the area or in the overhead is enough without actually having to deliver any weapons at that time. We follow a 5 pillars principle. Rules of engagement determine the types of targets that we are allowed by UK law to target, so the crews will know the types of targets they're allowed to attack. They will then confirm that they have positive identification and that the target they are being asked to strike is the one that the crews are actually looking at for their targeting pod. We look for pattern of life, so we look to see that we have proportionality. We'll also ensure that we have target engagement authority for us to be able to carry out the strike itself. And the final element is the collateral damage, and they'll be looking to see that the weapons that they have been asked to employ will only affect the targets they've been asked to. And if at any time any of those pillars are removed, then clearly an attack will not take place. Tornado GF4 is a multi-role aircraft that carries out both air-to-surface strikes and also tactical reconnaissance. And the weapons that we carry now are cutting edge. Brimstone is a unique weapon that the Royal Air Force brings. It's a low collateral weapon which enables it to provide the ability to target without inflicting destruction and devastation to the surrounding area. And it's also very, very good against mobile targets.
My job is a weapons system officer in the back of the Tornado, and so on operational deployment, myself and the pilot will get airborne to help out the guys on the ground, and should the need arise, we can always employ a weapon. Doing this job is extremely exciting. It's very challenging and it changes every single day, so it keeps us on our toes. The most rewarding part of the job is knowing that the guys on the ground are a bit safer having had us in the air.
The F-35 Lightning is a 5th-generation stealth combat aircraft. Unlike our previous combat aircraft, the Lightning will be able to do many different roles. So everything from the air-to-air fighter role that is typical of a fast jet, to strike and attack roles, right through to intelligence gathering. It can do multiple missions all at the same time. From a technological point of view, Lightning is pushing the field.
The young men and women currently undergoing military and professional training in the Royal Air Force will form the backbone of our service well into the 21st century. Following initial training, Royal Air Force through career education offers a spectrum of qualifications from modern apprenticeships right up to PhDs and equips our personnel for the challenges that the modern world and advancing technology will bring. This emphasis on training and education is also mirrored by the Royal Air Force sponsored Air Cadet organisation. Air Cadet membership fosters an interest in aviation, it fosters leadership skills, and most importantly, it fosters a spirit of good citizenship amongst the youth of today. Currently celebrating the 75th anniversary, the Air Cadet organisation is also a leading advocate of STEM, promoting science, technology, engineering and mathematics, all of which are essential in maintaining UK competitiveness in a globalised economy. Advanced technology and this development in our human capability will ensure the Royal Air Force's pre-eminence in the air power domain as we introduce this aircraft into service over the next decade, the F-35B Lightning. It will be operated on a joint basis with the Royal Navy from both land bases and the new Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier when that comes into service, and will offer UK Defence an enhanced expeditionary air combat capability well into the 2030s and hopefully well beyond. Plus, with 15% of each aircraft physically manufactured in the UK, it guarantees British jobs and it guarantees British income. Now, as I'm sure many of you are aware, it's not just us in the United States who are developing the F-35B. There's actually 9 partner nations involved in the development of the aircraft, meaning it's an excellent example of defence engagement. Through defence diplomacy, training and industrial collaborations worldwide, defence engagement expands the UK's influence around the world and strengthens global relationships.
We need to make sure that we can grow our frontline capabilities, but it's not going to be easy. Essentially, we're going to have to grow that capability whilst keeping the same number of people. So that requires us to be imaginative and innovative in how we approach that challenge. We're going to have to be agile and adaptable. The essential ingredient is our people. We have a highly talented, motivated and capable workforce. They are the people who actually deliver air power. And my job is to ensure that I lead those people to the very best of my ability and allow them to do the job which they do extremely well. The Air Cadets and the University Air Squadron is just a vital part of the Royal Air Force. That experience of leadership, that experience of teamwork, those essential qualities that they impart, that respect and integrity and service and excellence, those are vital qualities for any walk of life, and they're certainly ones that we embrace as part of the Royal Air Force.
The Royal Air Force of today really invests in our people in terms of training. This is really exciting times. We've got really great capabilities coming on board with modern aircraft. So getting people energised is easy, and the training we give them very much focuses on them and inspires them to hit our high standards.
Technology is massive, especially with the new aircraft that are coming through. The job is more IT savvy.
The good news is our younger generation are digital natives. They really get this technology, and the way we're moving is towards touchscreens, pilot-mounted displays and fusing information.
Synthetic training is a way for us to achieve all the training we need to achieve without putting the aircraft or ourselves in danger.
This is the SEPT, the Synthetic Environment Procedural Trainer, and this is where we teach the students how to marshal aircraft. I think modern students, they're used to this kind of thing, they can relate to it, they do enjoy it, they do take a lot from it, and I think it's a fabulous training resource.
We work in partnership with industry to make sure that our techniques and specifically our equipment is up to date.
The RAF and ourselves work very closely together. We supply and maintain simulators for the RAF, for Chinook and a Puma. We can achieve a lot more training for a lot less cost than can be achieved by simply flying the real aircraft. It's a constantly evolving programme. Part of my role is actually to keep abreast of the changes to the real aircraft and to make sure that we actually bring the simulators to that same state.
STEM is science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and it's a national drive to get people interested at a very early age in subjects that will lead to full engineering careers. We want to attract our very brightest and best young women and men, and the way we do that is by showing them that they can get responsibility early and that when they come here they can apply the maths and the physics that they learn in school in the real world to deliver effect on operations where it matters.
I'm training to be an information communication technology technician. I wanted a job that would challenge me intellectually and also a job that would involve new technologies. I'll be here at RAF Cosford for 12 months, starting with maths, electronic fundamentals and maintenance practices. I'll then go more deeply into the job role, so I'll be doing servers, networking, IT essentials and cyber.
Well, I'm immensely proud and privileged to be in command of the Royal Air Force. I have three ambitions. The first is to lead the Royal Air Force to the very best of my ability and ensure that we can continue to sustain what we do in operations at the moment. The second challenge is to make sure that we can grow the Air Force's capabilities for the first time in generations. And thirdly, and most importantly, is to ensure that we can recruit, train, sustain and retain the people that we need for the Royal Air Force and to give this great nation the air power that it needs.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Royal Air Force is a world-class air force. It is manned by professional, dedicated, highly trained personnel working with cutting-edge, advanced technology. The capabilities of the Royal Air Force give the UK government a range of options when responding to or attempting to prevent crises worldwide. Furthermore, in an uncertain world, the quality of our personnel and the quality of our equipment underwrites homeland resilience, regional stability and global security, and ensures that the Royal Air Force can look forward to its next 100 years with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our presentation complete. I won't finish with an apology, so penultimately, I will apologise for not being able to field questions again. We really do enjoy that because it puts us kind of on the spot. So I will finish by saying, as I began with, thank you very much for everything that you do. It really does make a difference to the people on the ground. Thank you.
One of our highlights of our conference today is to present the Flying Scholarship Awards. From the original pool of over 150 applications, 15 cadets were shortlisted for aptitude testing and panel interview. The quality of the candidates was exceptionally high, and I know the interview board had great difficulty in selecting the top 6. The winners this year, therefore, can be justably proud of their outstanding achievements. Sir, Mr. President, we are pleased to announce this year's Flying Scholarships, awarded as an acknowledgement of and thanks to the Air Cadets for their hard work in supporting the Royal Air Forces Association. I remind delegates that normally one overall winner receives 35 hours flying tuition, with 5 others each receiving 12 hours. Training covers all or part of the tuition needed for the award holders to obtain or go towards the completion of a national private pilot licence or even a private pilot licence. Both awards are very well deserved, with exceptional overall assessment results. Each of these young men and women receive a certificate today in recognition of their achievement. We congratulate them on their awards and wish them every success with their flying. The 12-hour Flying Scholarship recipients are, firstly, Cadet Sergeant Ryan Causey, a cadet with number 2279 Wrexham Squadron ATC. The next recipient, Cadet Sergeant Carol Marcin Kubik, a cadet with number 42 Mitcham and Morden Detached Flight ATC. Our next recipient is Cadet Sergeant Thomas Santini, a cadet with Robert Gordon's College CCF. I'm sorry to say that he can't be here today, but I'm sure our applause and congratulations goes to him. Our next recipient, Cadet Corporal Kira Louise McHugh, a cadet with number 72 Omar Squadron ATC. Our next recipient, Cadet Corporal Alexander Stockton, a cadet with number 331 Chesterfield Squadron ATC. Finally, congratulations to this year's overall winner, who is receiving the prestigious 35-hour Flying Scholarship. Cadet Sergeant Esme Webley, a cadet with number 2522 Bedlington Squadron ATC. Esme is currently undertaking her AS levels and looking forward to complete her A2s in the next academic year. Following this, it is Esme's wish to join the Royal Air Force as a pilot within the next year. The flying hours that Esme has won will aid her greatly in achieving her goal of becoming a pilot in the future, and we all wish her the very best of luck. So, Mr President, that concludes the presentation of the Flying Scholarship Awards. And now we move to the presentation of this year's National Presidential Certificates, the most prestigious award that the Association bestows. The NPC is for those that have made a substantial difference through ongoing valued support and/or significant achievements. Firstly, Eddie Dukelow, City and Central London branch, for providing years of voluntary welfare and community services to members of the Royal Air Forces Association and their families. Next is Joseph Corr, Carrickfergus branch, for showing remarkable commitment and support to the Carrickfergus branch of the Royal Air Forces Association. Next, Kath Allison of York Branch, for over 12 years' service in the position of Membership Secretary at the York Branch of the Royal Air Forces Association.
Part of this is for keeping John under control. Well, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next recipient, Arlene Dowson, Skipton Branch, for services to the Skipton Branch and wider manifestation of the ideals of the Royal Air Forces Association.
There you go, Ollie. No, you're very welcome. Thank you. Sorry, I missed some banter there, but that's probably as well. Okay, thank you, Ollie.
Next is Carol Vivian Williams of Llanidloes Branch, for many years dedicated voluntary service to the Llanidloes Branch and the wider community.
See you in a few minutes. Okay.
Noel Williams, Carrickfergus Branch, for a tremendous fundraising effort and unstinted dedication to the Carrickfergus Branch.
Well, Noel, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Excellent. We'll catch you later.
Bill and Maureen Kelsey, Littlehampton Branch, for the voluntary upkeep and maintenance of the RAF Association South East and Eastern Holiday Home at Chelsea, and I can speak because I've stayed there and it's fantastic.
Shake his hand.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you very much for your book as well. I'll give that to you,
Thank
because
you.
he'll probably lose it. Okay? I'll see you in a few minutes for a photograph.
Would you mind if I have a couple of words?
Very quickly,
Thank
yeah,
you.
go on.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've been operating this holiday home over the last 10 years, and it's so rewarding. If I might just read out the first person who went, or a couple who went into our home this year, and in the guest book, this is their comment. If we had stayed at Buckingham Palace, we couldn't have been more relaxed and contented. Immaculate caravan, everything you could ever need, never been in such a well-equipped van, bigger and better than our tiny bungalow in Cheltenham. There you go. When you consider that our unit is 36 feet by 12 foot, it makes you wonder where they're living. And the finale of their comments: adored the squirrels, rabbits and birds that visited us daily, pure paradise and escape from the stressful world. And I reckon that that is the best reward for us.
Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Our next recipients, Bob and Jane Latin, Morecambe and Lancaster branch, for outstanding service to the Morecambe and Lancaster branch of the Royal Air Forces Association. Mike Facey from Neath Branch, in appreciation of the many years of dedicated service in the roles of the Royal Air Force Association and Area Standard Bearer.
Some recognition of that is actually very well deserved. So while you're not pressing your trousers in future, you can polish this. Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Terry Dennett and Beryl Dennett Standard, Southwest Branch, in recognition of unstinted support to the Royal Air Forces Association, Southwest Branch, and the communities of Southwest France.
Thank you so much, Charles. You get a kiss as well. Okay, but not you.
No, thank you, Dusty.
I think like the fuzz. Very well deserved. And like all the others, so well deserved at such a small token.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
only
you
the
very much
leaders of
indeed.
the team. They deserve it too.
Thank you very much.
You can share it around.
Ladies and gentlemen, a number of recipients have chosen to have their awards presented locally this year, and I'm sure you will join me in sending out congratulations for their efforts too. I'm looking forward to see who makes the cut for our next round of MPC announcements, which will be in conjunction with the Queen's Birthday Honours list in June. Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll come over here and use the microphone and stand up, save all the sitting down and switching it on. That's it. Business is done for the day. Thank you very much indeed. I'm genuinely really impressed with the number of people we've managed to keep here to actually enjoy what's been a splendid afternoon. CES and I will now retire with the recipients of the Flying Scholarships and the National Presidential Certificates for a little photo session. But the rest of you are free to go. You don't need to worry about handsets. You've got rid of those. Okay, from now on in today, it's fun all the way. The Gala Awards evening starts at 8 o'clock. I'll still be dressed up like a strange thing. But it is a relaxed evening, so relax and enjoy it. Finally, I would like to say again, Sir and Elaine, thank you very much for putting aside actually a significant chunk of time to travel here and then travel back tonight. Thank you very much. Your presence has been and will continue to be very, very important. For the rest of us, that's it, team. Thank you very much indeed. Sir.